Welcome back to the Speaking and Communicating podcast. I am your host, Roberta. If you are looking to improve your communication skills, both professionally and personally, this is the podcast you should be tuning into. And by the end of this episode, please remember to subscribe, give a rating, and a review. Now, part of communication is actually communicating what your personal brand is, amongst other things. My guest today, Vinnie Potestivo, he's an Emmy Award winner, a former MTV talent executive, and the CEO and founder of VPE Talent Agency. He's here to talk to us about personal branding, collaboration, and so much more from the entertainment industry and how it impacts us. And before I go any further, please help me welcome to the show. Hi, Vinnie.
Hey, Roberta, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to share with business owners, individuals who find themselves to have a talent brand. I'm excited to share with you all how to get discovered, be more discoverable, and have increased visibility so your messages can be more sustainable, your impact can generate income, and we can live in a happier place.
That's
And
all what
if
we
that's
want to
if that's what you're
do.
down for, right? If that's what you're down for the next 45 minutes or so, then buckle in because this is going to be a great ride.
I'm so excited. I can't wait. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, I appreciate that. I'm from New York, born and raised in Staten Island. Growing up, I was the oldest of four, so it was my job to keep the kids out of the kitchen, keep the kids entertained, keep us away from danger. And I turned that big brother super skill into some superpowers that helped me develop people's talents to figure out how to best position them in the most positive light in media. And ultimately, when I was about 20, I got to MTV and was asked to help create the talent development department, a new way to tap into working with talent. At first, it was MTV Films. I got to be in the room and actually audition Beyonce for Carmen, a hip opera, for her very
In your
first feature.
20s?
Yeah, that's the first gig I ever get, by the way. So
Wow.
the best thing about that is that I didn't know what I didn't know. There was no social media then, so
Right.
the fear of not believing that I was doing something that I wasn't meant to be doing, that there was no space for that in my young ego. And I got to start my industry alongside of the same people who came to MTV to get to the audience that I was looking to create in front of. Beyonce, Mandy Moore, all the boy bands, all the female
Yes.
soloists. I got to work with Mandy Moore really closely and
I
created
love her work.
lifelong relationships with these people. And then reality TV. My boss and Sharon Osbourne, and a couple of lunch sessions later, came up with this concept of Real World for the Osbournes. And then Jessica Simpson loved the idea, and she was getting married and wanted to show the
The
world
Newlyweds
what
one.
newlyweds could be. And
Yes.
then Ashton Kutcher was sick and tired of just being seen as eye candy in a movie and being labeled as, the it boy in TV. He wanted to produce content, and not just a TV show, but he wanted to show the industry he was capable of creating a mega hit. He was really, really laser focused on what that first show was going to be. And we got to collaborate with him and created Punked together as
Yes.
our brand. And to have been at MTV at a point where those types of creators have to pass through those gates to get to audience, I got to collaborate with the most unique individuals from all walks of life. And now I do the same exact thing, except the truth of the matter is, Roberta, is that
Mhm.
you probably own more content than they do because you have a podcast. So snaps. Kudos to you. It's all about ownership now, right? It used to be
Hmm.
about let's get on TV, let's create an audience, let's try to retain the audience and see what we can take with us. Now we can own our content. Now we have the ability to say what we want, and when we get discovered, that we're doing it in a way that we want to be seen in, with people who we want to be seen next to, talking about topics that are important, that we want to give visibility to. That's cool where we're at right now. And that all of that
Mhm.
is because of social media, and to be honest, podcasting is the very beginning part of media 3.0, you know, this decentralized world where we own our content, it's on someone else's platform. You know, it's a growing
Right.
industry. It's growing because our collaborations, you know, this episode is proof that the space is growing. We're part of the alchemy of this expanding industry. I know what that feels like. I was in that in reality TV and unscripted TV in the 90s. It feels very, very similar. And
Mm.
the truth of the matter is with all my TV experience, it's way easier for me to convert a podcast into a television show or another project. It's easier for me to convert a podcast into a media project than it is a book into a TV show or even a movie into a TV show. It's easier for me to go podcast to TV or podcast to book. So I'm fully leaned in on podcasts as a medium, and really have been, to be honest, since my very first podcast to broadcast flip, which was a show called Man and Wife with Fat Man Scoop and his wife Shauna Freeman,
Mm.
and it was 2006. And it was a very necessary conversation, a very urgent and needed way to talk about sex that did not look like Loveline did when I grew up watching, you know,
Right.
MTV. Two guys talking about sex and joking around from a very alpha male perspective.
Mm.
And this podcast allowed me to do that. And I'm finally in front of the mic, which is about as comfortable as I'll ever be, you know, being on screen. But the thing I love about it is that,
Mm.
you know, people own like television networks. Like there's a person who owns TV networks where it's like publicly traded. People don't own the podcast industry. We own our podcast. And I can
Yeah.
show up for this interview and not be nervous and not get sweaty palms. I get really sweaty palms when I get in my head about
I
being.
hope I don't make you feel that way, by the way, during the interview.
No, you know, and it's just the stories we tell ourselves. You know, so many of us might not want to get on camera because oh, what am I going to say? I don't know what to say. I don't know how to answer. I don't know what they're going to ask me. So I don't, and we get, you know, so deep in our head that we talk ourselves out of it. I was that person for a very long time. But knowing that I'm showing up, to be honest, knowing that I'm showing up in your space, Roberta, like this is like your house and I'm your guest. I
And
have
you
all the
are
confidence in the
welcome.
world. Yeah, I feel that. Thank you so much. I feel that.
Appreciate that. Yes. First of all, did you meet the king of Staten Island, Pete Davidson?
Is he the king? That
That's
you know
what they
what?
call
I'll
him.
give it to him. I'll give it to him. He's put
Yeah.
that. Every once in a while, that island goes through a rebrand. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
with the Jersey Shore kids, or now obviously SNL. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to come from a little island that people are aware of. To be
Mm.
really honest. Also, we got Christina Aguilera.
There you go.
Yeah, you know, we got some Steve Buscemi. That's like
Loved him in The Wedding Singer. Let's not get into that.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh, exactly.
Yeah.
Steve, if you're listening to this.
And then and the other thing,
The pinnacle.
Go ahead. Yes. The other thing I found that, speaking of Mindy Moore, who I love in A Walk to Remember,
Oh yeah.
she said you now deserve your place in the sun because you've always been the behind the scenes guy. Is that the reason you stayed there for so long, because of what you said earlier about being shy on camera?
Well, I think I just found my strength someplace, and I enjoyed being someplace where other people recognized my strength and I recognized my strength. It was very rewarding for me to be off camera, to be creative, to get to be by the way, to get to be in the room. Towards the end of my career, sure, I got to have a voice in that room. In the beginning of my career, I was invited in the room. Like that's major, to have the presence, you know, to be in that room. That's where so many opportunities came my way that, you know, if it wasn't for my gut instinct to just want to be someplace, to be a part of something, that's really what drove me. I'm thinking about this one story.
Yeah, go ahead.
When I started MTV, and we had our hosts were called VJs, video jockeys, and I went down to the studio. It was his first, you know, show that he was going to host, and will.i.am was the guest.
Yeah.
So it was a cool show. We did the whole 30-minute show, and then afterwards, Will I Am turned to his manager and was like, so like, wait, I'm a #1 video and I'm only in this show for like 3 minutes. But if I host a show, I can be in it for 30 minutes. He's like, how do I host a show around here? And he kind of
Good
laughed, and
question.
everyone looked at me, and I was like, oh, wait, is this like is this my opportunity to, I know who to call. Wait, would you really host a show for 30 minutes? Because that sounds like, it sounds like something I need to run by my boss, but it certainly sounds like something that like I would want to watch. I think that's a great idea. We think that you would never want to be a host, and I think we would love to have you as a host. And that was a 1 week turnaround. The Will I Am half-hour mega mix original programming came up, and that was the bite. That was when I realized that talent had a connection to MTV, but weren't connected to MTV. The connection was through the label, through the manager, to the network. And what our department was able to do was listen to the talent. And I say it this way, in the 80s and 90s, we kind of gave them the cameras to make these music videos. In the late 90s, it became about the audience. You saw the TV, the cameras, the cameras were always on the celebrity and the audience. That
and the
was the
MTV
story. They're in
set,
the
and
room
yes, and
together,
they'll be
right? They're in the
clapping
room
after the
together.
song. Yes, they're together.
Then my 10 years was, we gave the cameras to the celebrities and said, well, get out of our Times Square studio and go tell your story of your life, Jessica Simpson and Mandy Moore and the Osbourne. Here's the cameras, go take them. And then I left in 2007, and which is just when I say MTV took all those cameras back from the celebrities, and then they gave it to the kids. Here's the Hills, the Challenge, the Jersey Shore, Laguna Beach, all of these shows where, and then maybe 2 to 3 years later is when, Facebook and MySpace are verbs and nouns, and we're using them in sentences. And then ultimately, we don't want to be represented in media. We want to represent the media. We don't want just to be included in the conversation. We want inclusion in the conversation. And it was cool to see that media journey during my 10-year, period at MTV, where we go from the real people economy to the expert economy. We're currently in the creator economy. But I like to point that out because, like, if you ask me, that's just like money people making an excuse for it to be okay to work with us.
Yeah. Yes.
So
Speaking
I think
of the creative economy, though, what about the impact of YouTube? So you started before there was YouTube, right?
Yeah. YouTube,
How
for
did it
us,
change the landscape that you've just talked about?
do you know what the single moment was that changed our relationship
The
between
Super
MTV
Bowl
and YouTube?
Janet
That's sure
and
is
Justin
right.
Timberlake. Yes.
That moment, that we call it Nipplegate, but that moment was
that's right.
that was a serious moment where all of a sudden the data just blew. I mean, I remember sitting in we had this meeting called Walter, WALTER, an acronym for We All Like to Earn Ratings. And we would have emergency Walter meetings. And it was really because our ratings were on a decline, and you can literally see the decline of we didn't see the scope in television, but we saw the decline on our network, day after day, week after week. We saw the numbers started going down. We didn't know where they were going. Assumably, we thought maybe ESPN2 or Disney or some other platform that sort of connected with a youth audience. But YouTube took away the need for playlists. To be really honest, the YouTube took away the cassette, the DVD. It took away so much. Yeah, right. It took away so many of the ways that we shared content, that we learned how to share content, and YouTube came in as a really strong supplement to be able to allow people to have instant access to content. By the way, YouTube came out roughly around the same time that podcasting also came out. I tried to do a podcasting.
That far back?
Yeah, podcasting, I would say, podcasting, technically 0304. YouTube, I think, is
07. Oh, wow.
Well, podcasting for sure, I think 04, because that's when there was case against Adam Curry and MTV Networks about ownership over MTV.com. And that was right when he launched and created the RSS. One of the VJs from MTV created the
Which is the
technology.
extension for the podcast
Yeah,
URL, the
RSS,
RSS.
really simple syndication. And all it says is that there's an audio file, and if I ping it and something's there, I can download it when I have internet. And again, it's really cool to think about like all the creation of media types that came out of that MTV world. Like I look back at my 10 years there, and I'll say this, like the thing we got right was we get a lot. First off, I get a lot of blame, and rightfully so, but I get a lot of blame for why there's no more music videos on that network. Like it was our department that was creating unscripted programming that was dominating that network. So like I'm proud to say that. But we changed the time. We said why does an artist only get 1 5-minute segment on the Late Show to talk about their life or showcase something that's serious about them, and they have to come out with an album to do it? We're a platform. We have access to youth culture. When we put things in front of them, they take action. Why can't we just give Jessica Simpson? To be honest, Jessica Simpson, at a point in time where the media had a tremendous opinion on what a young female should do and how she should act and how she should dress and what she should do after she gets married and what her wedding should look like, a tremendous impact that the media had. And
did
what
that
MTV,
feed into the Newlywed reality show?
That's what created the show. Yeah. She said, I want
wow.
my time. I need my time, my rules, my terms, and I'll let you in on my life and I'll show you what I do, but you have to see what I do in 30-minute increment, not in a small window where you're comparing me to Christina and Jessica, Christina and Brittany and all the other, Pink and all the other, female artists of the time.
Right.
She was just very, very different, and it was a big reason why Joe Simpson, her father, came into the network and pitched that show. It was an opportunity to show America, especially young America that was watching MTV, what a woman could be like, a modern woman could be like in a marriage, first and foremost. And it was something that we hadn't even talked about. And then because life imitates art and art imitates life, I'll never forget when Britney Spears, Jamie Lynn Spears, was pregnant, and a cover article came out about her pregnancy. That was a People
Cover article, I remember.
It was, and that was the article that inspired Teen Mom on MTV. And they said, this is an important story for people to see. And we want to show people the good side and the bad side, the truth and the salacious side of what being a young mom could look like. And that's literally where the birth of and that's cool. That's cool to be part of a media company that takes responsibility in creating conversations and creating awareness and creating words and creating opportunities for action. I really miss that about television that I got to work in the late 90s, and the responsibility.
The storytelling aspect of it, yes.
Yeah, and I was spoiled. My job at MTV was to call up celebrities and see if they wanted shows. Now, you need an agent, and there's a production company, and people bid on it, and like you would never give away an idea without a license, trademarking it, and all the other things that it takes. So I was really, really, really blessed to be at MTV at a point in time where those creators that I loved working with had to pass through, 1515 Broadway on MTV to get to the audience. Is a cool time. But I learned so much, Mandy Moore taught me how to be on time.
I love that, because celebrities are known for not being punctual.
Oh man, she is like, if you say 6:30, she's like 5:45. I'm like, man, just call me if you're gonna be that early, because I don't want you to be there without me. So because you're not allowed to be there, because it's my responsibility to take care of you. So, but you work with these people who become, I was lucky to work with people who became my friends, and I think that kind of spoiled me, and now I really love working with my friends, and that's the coolest part of being sort of a creative entrepreneur, is a point where like your friends are your coworkers, and then they become your clients, and now my clients, and then your clients become your friends when you start your business, and now my friends and my clients all we're all growing
That
together
is so
and creating
beautiful.
together. And that was my goal. That's what I loved about MTV is it felt like I knew those top 10 artists for the top 10 videos of the week. It felt like I did. I had access to them.
Mm.
We can call on them and say, "Hey, would you like to host a show? Would you like to come through and contribute to, I don't know." So we did so many cool pro social campaigns at MTV that I loved working there.
Mhm.
So for me, youth culture has been a big part of my journey. I became an advisor on a network called Bespoke TV. It targets like
Yes.
18 to 23-year-old young female audience, and it's like right in my sweet spot. And it's been a really cool opportunity to keep, creating content and doing it with people who own their IP. That's the difference. Now I want you to
Yes.
own your content, because the future of bundling, we see Peacock and HBO Max and all these new
I watch so many
platforms,
shows on the Peacock.
right?
Yeah.
And you know, like, who's got friends? Someone's got Friends, and someone's got Seinfeld, and someone's got Steve Harvey
Mm.
Show, and someone, the
Suits,
shows
my
kind of
favorite.
suits like to bounce around on all these different apps. That's because those networks own the IP. What
Mm.
we'll be able to do as podcasters, people who are creating our own content, people who are creating their own video series that have real IP in the future. I mean, I know more platforms
Yeah.
have been created than podcasts have been created, right? I could name more new channels than I could new podcasts right now. So I know there's this.
Wow. Speaking of that, you say that you know how to take a podcast and let it be featured on IMDb.
Yeah.
Like, you know how we look for movie stars, we say Minda Moore, IMDb, want to see all the movies and TV shows she's acted in. You can do the same thing with a podcast?
Yeah, so IMDb is the Internet Movie Database. It's owned by Amazon, and the Internet Movie Database is a place for creative IP, intellectual property.
Mm.
So you can't watch A Walk to Remember, on IMDb, but you can see who created it, who directed it, who were the actors, how many episodes, what was the box office number, it gives you a whole bunch of hundreds, by the way, of data points about the movie itself. And what happened a couple of years ago, actually probably 2 years ago now, was IMDb approved podcasts as an approved form of intellectual property that can receive credit on imdb.com. And here's the benefit. First off,
Yeah.
IMDb. So there's something called domain authority, right? And the higher, out of 100 points, the higher your domain authority, the more trusted your website is. And this matters for websites like Google, who scrape your website for information. So IMDb has a very high domain authority. So what it tells Google, it has new data point. Google says, this is really legit information. We're going to make sure it shows up in search results. Not, okay, that's nice. Okay. You know how it feels sometimes as a podcaster. We come out with these episodes and we hope for that we hope that they show up in our search engine results, right?
Right.
So what IMDb allows us to do is upload our title for as intellectual property, upload us as the owner, executive producer, writer, host, attach all of our guests, create each episode that we've ever created, and attach the description. And this is major because it might feel duplicative based on how far you are in your career or what you have been doing with your
I'd be
podcast
happy to do
notes.
it.
And please, I'm like, trust me,
I'd be happy to do
it's a
it.
whole new set of information that you've just been sitting on that Google doesn't know yet. It also allows you to give, this is my favorite part, you get to give credit, not just to yourself, but to others. It's really cool. I love getting, by the way, I work in TV. So when I work on a show as a casting director, I get my credit on IMDb because I want Bravo to see the MTV guy casting the show. And then I want A&E to see me casting the Bravo show. I built a whole career having credits on IMDb.
Yes, I heard that
proof of
podcasting.
expertise. It's proof of expertise. By the way, guests, if you win awards, if you have a production company, if you have contact information from how you like to get, contacted, and unlimited.
I always ask, yeah.
So photos, videos, any social media content you created to promote your episode, you can upload that to IMDb, and it's just going to change your world. It's going to change how you rank on Google. It's going to change your Google search images, your Google image search completely. That's my favorite part, by the way. So if you have an X or a weird picture you're trying to squish down to the second page, this is a killer way, a great, and this is like less than a week. I'm seeing results on average, less than a
That
week.
is amazing.
If you're creating episodes and including description in those episodes and attaching a photo, a screenshot of the two shots. By the way, shout out to my four-legged companions here.
Hi, four-legged companion. Welcome to the show.
That's little Dudley Greenfield. He's the accountant here at VPE.
Much needed services. Yes.
And it's the things that keep life happening, right? Those little guys.
Of course. Yes. Oh, I'm going. Yes, that is definitely, because another thing they've mentioned is that the more you are on podcasts, the more that you're gonna rank on Google when your name is searched. So if I say Vinnie Potestivo, because of the many podcasts you've been on, it's just gonna be a whole bunch of pages with your name on it.
Oh wow! I have to tell you something. If
ahead.
someone would have told me how valuable being a podcast guest was, it's like the one thing no one told me that I had to learn myself the hard way. And like sometimes the hard way is the best way, because it meant I got to meet with, hundreds of people one-on-one, which was actually my strength. That's like reality casting for me. So I'm really good. Like what we're doing, I'm great at. The old version of my job, I didn't mean to say that, but
but you are.
I'm happy. I'm great at it because I'm happy with it and I love the product and I trust the product. And I know I have to bring, certain value and information to be able to, make this valuable for you to be able to do your job. I know this because I've been in your seat. I've for 2 decades was the person who edited. Actually, in TV, I had to edit my voice out of every interview and then basically just put like photo montages and like screenshots of their websites on people's so that the network executives would get to understand who you are. And it's just basically a series of sound bites that I would edit together. This collaborative result that we get to create in podcasting, does it only just end in an amazing episode that is evergreen and searchable forever, but it changes the alchemy of what I do next. That's the part that I really love most about podcasting. Roberta is it's us. How you create, how you prepped me in the beginning before we even recorded, the way you walk me through the process. Everyone is different. Like I mentioned, even at MTV, all those working on Making the Band with Diddy, a very different experience than Newlyweds or The Challenge with TJ Lavin, where all I have to do is go to an exotic island for 2 weeks and make sure
and get paid to go to an exotic island.
I
don't think you were complaining.
Not a bad gig. No,
not at all.
And shout out to TJ Lavin. Also, shout out to Nick Cannon and DJ D-Rec. The three old guys that I put on MTV 20 years ago who have brilliant franchises, The Wild 'N Out and The Challenge, are killing it.
Yes.
Created so much. So shout out to those guys.
You've created so many. It's almost like you, the grandpa, and looking at your grandchildren growing and being big because you were the first. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When I got into podcasting, people started talking about legacy a lot, and I just didn't come from a family of money, or legacy and money tend to be tied really closely together. So when everyone was like, well, what's your legacy? I was like, what's my legacy? I'm like, Mandy Moore and
look at all this
Beyonce. Like, or you could look at this legacy. I'm in it. I'm in my legacy. This is that I should be so lucky. And that's just the beginning part. That's where that was the school part. That was where finally school was rewarding to me when I got to MTV and I learned with really empathetic, conditioned creators who were inclusive every step of the way, versus my own personal experiences in school and high school and junior high, which were not good at all, based on getting picked on and all the things. I'm sure we all have our stories and stuff like that, but it was I was in a much healthier space and open to learning and and learned to be a brilliant collaborator, because I saw some of the best people fail and I saw them get back up and do it again and then rock it out. And I just learned from the best. So I'm lucky.
Collaboration, working with people you like and trust and who become your friends, which is the same in any workplace, not just
Yeah.
on television.
Yeah. I think you're right on that. I think that's what allows me, even in this podcast episode, it allows me to show up at 100% from the get-go, where I don't have to warm up to sort of get into it. I come from a place of trust because of the process that we went on to get here. In casting, I rely on that. I tell myself, like, Vin, you are a good judge of character. You don't give up your time easy or often. And when you do, it's worth it. And this is the result.
Definitely, most definitely. There's one other person who gave you a shout out who I have a lot of, well, my cousin and I fight over who's better, Stephen Colbert or Jon Stewart, but we're not going to get into that. And he gave you a shout out.
That's so funny. That is so funny. Yeah, that was pretty cool to be part of the Daily Show. That was I'm open to opportunities. So
Right.
they just happened. I think the DNC came out with some information got released from the DNC back in the Obama era about like what would make an ideal Democratic, representative, like what would be the ideal Democrat to speak up at one of the rallies. It was real literal too. So they thought it would be real funny to go to someone like me with like an esteemed casting background in casting housewives, as they said, women who flip tables and matchmakers. So disrespectful, but funny but funny and relevant. And it's one of the things that I got to collaborate on with. You know what I mean? Like, are you kidding me? My passion and my interest in media, as strange and unique as they are, have given me the opportunity to experience the conversations and projects that I've had access to, and then I made friends along the way. To me, that was what I wanted. Was I always really appreciated having like high output, talented friends. I really like being surrounded by people who really care and are mindful of their output.
There's a human to human connection, and it's not about who's what, where in Hollywood. Now let's talk about personal branding. What are some of the key things you think go into branding yourself? I mean, you've been basically in over 2-3 decades of being in this industry. You know exactly what makes one stand out from the other. And am I wrong to say it's not just talent only?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's not just talent only. I've met so many talented people who didn't know how to use it or showcase it. Also, I've met so many people who are great at doing things well and that were great at doing things poorly, and both were equally as successful. Any type of process is generally interesting to watch because of the choices that one has to make. If it's a more comedic journey versus a more straight through journey, we both get value out of that. For me, it's about finding what makes someone fascinating. It's if I can tell you what I think makes you fascinating, that also means that I can tell you what I think makes you similar, which is really important. So understanding the baseline, understanding to the audience that you're looking to build your profile in front of, what makes us similar, that's really, really important. That could be a goal, it could be a value, it could be an academic association, it could be a nonprofit, it could be so many things. But finding those base similarities, that's something that I actually find people skip over in the very beginning process of understanding your personal brand.
Yeah.
It's like they try to understand what makes them fascinating and amazing. To me, that's like, I guess they would say that's the sizzle. And when I'm trying, say don't sell the steak, sell the sizzle.
The sizzle, yeah.
Right, like that's the part you smell, and that's the part that fills the room, and you can taste it before you get there. But if you don't understand what quality beef you're dealing with, it's going to be really hard to follow through on that promise. So understanding, for me, I like to say 2D. We're kind of getting into 3D territory, but there's intersections I like to be in. So for me, like, for example, my intersection, I would say, is like passion and power. I like people knowing that I'm passionate about projects and also know that I have the ability to push through and make things happen. But because I'm aware of my passion and power pay, I have to be careful that I'm not over passionate, which can be interpreted as emotional or
Oh,
emotional or what's the word of what's the opposite of emotional? Unemotional.
i-
Yeah,
indifferent?
yeah, indifferent, right? Like if there's
Mm,
too much of it or lack of it, right?
right.
And with power, I have to come from a place of yes, because no one likes to be told no. So if I hear an idea and it's a great idea and I think it's like 70% to where it could be, I just have to remind myself to not start by saying no. I would do it this way. I have to remind myself that I can come across overtly, I can come across too powerful, and no is much louder than yes. Unfortunately, I'll say that again. We hear no, like it's the loudest no. We hear yes, and we're like, oh, we didn't, it wasn't enough yet. Well, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? I
that
can
is
go through
true.
so many scenarios of what I'm trying to like talk about, like a bad relationship, and they're like, well, did he tell you he wasn't going to call you? And you're like, yeah, he told me that. And like, well, why did you think he was going to call you? Because like he said he wasn't good. Yeah, like he said it, but it's like we hear no
Yeah,
way, way, way louder, way quicker
louder.
than we hear yes. And it maybe is a place of um protection.
Mm,
For me, I'm thinking maybe it comes from a place of protection, especially in media, where we want to own our content because we know they're trying to take it from us, quote unquote, or someone's trying to do something. It feels like, we have to hold on to it tightly. We don't know why, but we know we have to hold on to it. And I think
like a
that's
survival instinct thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a difference of where we're at now, and the brink of what Web3 is bringing to us. Like
Mm,
when they really flesh out the ability to connect blockchain to our podcast episodes, and we can start collaborating on a level that's traceable, like that's going to give us individuals the same power that large companies have. And I'm really looking forward to that moment. And a lot of it's going to have to do, a lot of it will be led by the creative communicators of our industries. And I
mm,
think that's what podcasting might be doing, is priming all of the industries: dental, doctors, lawyers, real estate. There is a siloed industry of podcasting, but predominantly podcasting fractures most economies. And I think what we're
mm.
doing is figuring out who are the articulate experts, right? They're not necessarily going to be seen as hosts or podcasters. They're just really, really well-spoken people who can get in front of a television camera or behind a mic and talk about their expertise in a way that we, the public audience, wanted elevated. We're getting
Right.
tired of social media content.
We are so, oh no, that,
And I'll tell
you
you
know how
this,
many more people are saying, I no longer have that account or this account. I'm not mentioning names.
it's
Uh,
so true. It doesn't show up in search. We started talking about search from the get-go. And
mm,
even as of now, as of February 2023, Google has already removed the little play button that it used to give podcast search results. So you used to be able to search for something, find an episode, hit the play button, and start listening.
wow.
That left in December of 2022. And in February of 2023, Google announced that they will no longer be showing podcasts as part of search-based
Of your
information.
search.
So
Wow.
if you're not creating
I,
blogs about your episodes, then Google isn't going to be indexing your podcast if you're only publishing your podcast as an episode. So
mm,
if you have a blog, it'll read a blog and it's still doing what it does with blogs. But if it's only coming out as in the form of an episode on a podcast, it's no longer going to show up in search
featured on
results.
the search. Vinny, tell us
That's
what VPE Talent Agency does before you go, please.
Oh, I love that. We just help people get discovered. We help people and brands get discovered and have a 25-year history in doing it. It's plain and simple.
There you go. And where on socials can we find you? Not socials, interwebs, all the streets
Yeah.
online?
Yeah, we hang out. I hang out on LinkedIn. If you
Mm,
really want any of my actual username or information like that, my advice would be go to Roberta's friend list. Look through the list down to
yes.
the V's for Vinny. find me there. You'll also find me in the 5-star review that I left for Roberta. So if I'm leaving Roberta a 5-star review, please let this be the episode that brings you wherever you push play. You're going to have to stop this podcast soon because it's coming to an end. So like when you hit end, 2 things. Quickly leave a 5-star review and then take a snapshot and share it, because sharing it is what leads to discoverability.
Exactly. Words of wisdom from Vinnie Potestivo, the former MTV talent development exec and CEO and founder of VPE Talent Agency. This has been so exciting. Too bad you have to go. This was such a fun conversation.
I'll come back.
Please do. Yes, we all want to
Thanks.
listen to you. Again, you have so much to share. Don't forget to subscribe, give a rating and a review, and we'll be with you next time.